Guys, what's up? I'm IModernArts here, and as promised, you guys did a great job liking and commenting on this video of the alphabet text. So I'm making a tutorial on it. So for those of you who haven't seen the video, let me just show it to you real quick, if I can find it. Alright, yeah. So this is pretty much it. So this is the right version. Oh, that's without the color correction. This is it. There you go. So it's pretty much just Cinema 4D, and then I added a color correction and a camera shake in Adobe, which I'll also be going over real quick. But let's just get right into it because it's pretty simple, but it does take a little while. So open up a new project in Cinema 4D. Before we add all the letters and the details and stuff, let's just set it up. So use this rotating tool and just center the camera so it looks something like that, or center the view. And then you're going to add a camera. Click this white box and let's change the timeline to 180. That would be pretty good. I think I might have done 210, but it doesn't make that much of a difference. And then with your camera selected, you guys might be familiar with this, you're just going to click the keyframe at the very beginning at frame 0 and a keyframe at the end of your timeline, and this will just hold the camera in place so it's just locked on that center view. And now let's just do some render settings. So click on this button and we're going to make our output, we're going to make that 1280 by 720. The frame range, all frames obviously. Save it as a QuickTime movie and just give it a name and choose somewhere to save it. I'm going to save it somewhere because I'm going to have to put it into Adobe for the second part of the tutorial. And then anti-aliasing, you can keep that as it is. Options, you can put these 3 boxes, 6 for the ray depth, 2 for the reflection depth, and 6 for the shadow depth. Just divide everything by 3, or by, was it 3? I don't really know. Alright, now go to Effect and add the ambient occlusion, which, gives those really nice shadows. For this, I would change the maximum ray length to, I think I had it at 150, and the maximum samples to 80. It doesn't need to really be that many samples. And then the contrast, I'm just going to put that at like 15. And sorry if I'm going too fast for you guys, but I just want to get this render settings out of the way, so you can always go back or watch some of my more in-depth tutorials on ambient occlusion and global illumination. General, keep that the same, and for irritants, catchy, put these 2 boxes on low. And yeah, we're pretty much good to go for render settings. So now we're going to set up pretty much the background, that smooth, nice orange, like gradient background. So first of all, you're going to add a floor, which everything's going to land on, and then you're going to add a background, simple setup. And we're going to make our material for the background. So double click right here, double click again to open the editor, and go into your color channel thingy, and just make the texture, choose a gradient, and then you can double click right here and make that circular. And as you can see, you got those 2 colors. The black one is the center color and the white one is the outer color. So those are obviously the wrong colors. What you're going to want to do for the center color, I made this kind of a light yellow orange like that. And for the outer color, I made that kind of a bright orangey red type of color. So something like that, maybe a little bit less bright. And if you want to choose a blue or something like that, you can, just the same idea. But yeah, it's up to you for the color scheme. So you got that gradient. You're going to drag it onto the floor and copy and paste, or control drag onto the background. And we can't render it yet to show you what it's like because we don't have any lights yet. But just click on your floor, click on the material right here next to the floor, and put the projection on the frontal. I mean, don't ask me why, I don't even know why, but that's just the way it works. And then just do the same thing for the background. and then you're just gonna right click on the floor, Cinema 4D tags, compositing, and then check off compositing background. So you have it like that, and then you'll get that smooth gradient look. It's like an infinite floor kind of technique, and it's pretty useful if you didn't know how to use it. And then the last thing we should do before setting up the lighting, before setting up the letters, I think, is to add our lights. So, or wrong thing, click on this blue cube, and you're going to get a plane, and then you're going to change the width and the height of that plane to 1000 by 1000, and change the orientation. Where is this, the right one? Let's see. Yeah, oops. Change the orientation to +X, and just move that first, or before you do that, control drag on the plane so you have two of them, and just label one of them left and the other one right, and those are going to be our lights. So click on the left one, obviously just take the red arrow and drag it out of the scene to the left, and click on the right one, drag the red arrow and drag it out of the scene to the right. And our final light is going to be kind of an overhead light. Again, make the height and width 1000 by 1000, and take this rotator tool, and if you hold down shift, it will change the degrees in increments of 5 degrees. So if you hold down shift and rotate, you can see it goes by 5, and just make that 45 degrees. And now go back to your move tool and go into these 4 views and choose the right view and just zoom out a little bit on that, and you can just use the yellow arrow to move that plane out of the scene like that, and you're good to go. So now we can start adding materials to the planes, and the one you just added that you moved to the front, just call that one front so you don't get confused. So now double click in here to add a material, and you're just going to check off luminance, and this is going to be the material of the plane, which is going to be the light, and put that value at 400. And then you can choose kind of a subtle color, like a subtle yellow, because lights aren't completely white. So I'm doing kind of a subtle yellow-orange. It's faded. And yeah, that's my first material. And then you're going to control drag down here to duplicate the material. Double click into it and just change the luminance color to kind of a faded light blue, blue-green, like that. And finally, double click one more time and edit the material and just check off luminance and make the luminance what is it, like 600%, and you can just keep it the same color. So you're gonna drag the one that you just made that has 600% luminance, drag that onto the front plane, and these two, the faded yellow one and the faded blue one, it doesn't matter if you drag those onto the left or the right, but just drag one color onto the left and one color onto the right. And now let's render this out to see where we're at. Oops, wrong screen. Alright, and as you can see, you kind of have that shadow, so we might want to move this front one out of the way a little bit more, a little bit up above, and let's see if we can get rid of that. Alright, that's looking better. So now you have that whole setup, and that's kind of the boring part, but now we can actually start making the text. So go to MoGraph and click on Text Object, and we're going to start choosing letters that are going to fall down. I use the letters IModernArts, the MODERNARTS, but you guys can use whatever letters you want. You don't even have to use as many letters. But let's just make our first letter. Let's just start with a lowercase a, and you're going to want to make them all lowercase. And the font I used was Harbara, which I got from thefont.com, and how to spell that, that's Harabara, Harabara, and you can get that off defont.com. But if you don't have it, and even if you don't like it, you can just use Helvetica. Helvetica works too, or Arial, just something plain. If you use a crazy font, it's gonna look not that good. So choose Harabara, and you're gonna get a letter that looks like that. You can just experiment with the rotation just to get a better view. And I'm gonna make the depth a little bit more, like maybe 35 or something like that, but it's all opinion. And now let's go to some caps. Let's add a fillet cap. Let's make the radius maybe something like 3. And let's add about 15 steps. So you get that nice rounded edge. So that's just our first letter. You can render it out right now. Oops. Yeah, you can just render it out right now to see what you got. Not bad, not bad. But yeah, that's our first letter. And after that, you can just copy and paste it, or let me just drag these under, or control drag and click on it to edit it. And you can just change the letter. So I'm just going to make this one B. And then you can control drag again and make the next one C. I'm just going to do A, B, C, D, E, F as an example. And I'm going to make this one D. You can choose whatever letters you want. You can even choose one letter if you want, or you could choose all the letters of the alphabet. So I'm just going to control drag again and make this one a lowercase e. And then finally make this one an F. Alright, so you got 6 letters, let's see, A, B, C, D, oops, skip the E. Let's make that one an F. And let's control drag and make this last one an F also. Alright, so you got 6 letters. And now to make them kind of fall down and repeat, we're going to start making that effect. So you're going to go to MoGraph, Cloner Object, and then you're going to select all of these letters and drag them into the cloner object. And this is just going to clone them. I'm sure you're familiar with this technique for, say, spheres or cubes or something like that, but it works for letters too. And I'm not going to get too into that, but I'm just going to tell you guys the right settings. So once you're in your cloner object, in the object section, put the mode on grid array and put the count. The higher, well, you're going to get obviously more letters, but also it's going to make your computer really laggy. So if I do 4x4x4, my computer already starts getting pretty laggy, and that's not even that much of a, So I wouldn't even, it depends how fast your computer is. I'm just going to make it 3x3x3 for the sake of this tutorial. And let's also select all of our letters and make the height a little bit less so they're not as big. And now we got pretty much 6 letters, or however many you have, inside the cloner object. And let's also go to MoGraph and click Random Effector. And you can keep position checked off and just move it in whatever ways you want, just so it's kind of crazy and random looking. But I wouldn't change to position Z. It's not going to look that good. And then for scale, check off scale in your random effector and just check off uniform scale, so that way it's all kind of relative, if that's the right word. I don't really know. But if you check it off, you can see the effect. It scales up and down the height, length, and width of the text. But I wouldn't make that too dramatic. I'm just going to make it like 0.08, something like that. Don't make it too crazy. And then you can go back to the random effector, check off rotation, and just rotate the letters a little bit. But when they all fall down, they're all going to get rotated anyway. So it doesn't matter that much. And so we're getting somewhere. We're going to drag these up out of the scene, as so. And now, to get them to all fall, you guys probably know what's coming. Right-click on the floor, Cinema 4D tags, no, MoGraph tags, rigid body, and then control drag that tag so it's on the cloner object too. And this is gonna apply gravity to the floor and the text so all these letters fall. And if I play it, my computer's gonna be really laggy, but you can see all the letters fall and it looks pretty cool. But we're not quite done yet. Those values are pretty good. I was going to show you the values I used. If you select both of these, for bounce, I put it at 0.3. For friction, I put that at 3. No, the bounce I put at actually 0.1. The friction at 3, and the collision noise at 0.3. But you guys can use whatever settings you prefer. But if you play that, it looks pretty nice. Let's just render that real quick and see how it looks. As you can see, for such a complicated project with so many letters, it's actually pretty quick, and that's one of the reasons it's so quick is because the minimum samples is only at 80, and as you can see, it doesn't make that significant of a difference. It still looks not that bad. Alright, so let's start adding some colors. It's pretty easy, just click a material and you can just start making colors. And you guys should know how to do that, but I'll just show you. You can choose the color tab. For bright red, just choose the red color. Then for luminance, I put my luminance at about 20% and had it match the color. And I just copied and pasted that like 5 times and then just changed the color and just chose some cool colors that pop. So you guys can choose some colors, but obviously only as many colors as there are letters, so I'm only going to make 6 quick colors that look cool. You guys can use reflection if you want, but it's going to increase the render time. So I did do that, and the render time on this as it is 2 hours, which isn't that bad, but if you had some reflection, it might start getting pretty high up there. And let's just make this one like purple. And let's leave the last one with no material. And now you can go inside of your cloner object and just apply the materials and drag them onto the letters. And yeah, there we go. We got our colors all settled out. Oops, wasn't selected in there. Whatever. Couple more little subtle things you can do. You can select all your text object, select all your letters, select all your letters, right click Cinema 4D tags and choose motion blur. And that will give it a motion blur. Alright, and after you do that, you can go back into your render settings and click on effect and click on motion blur. And this will just blur the text as it's hitting the ground kind of. And finally, one last effect that you see is the depth of field effect. So let's go back into our render settings, click on effect, and do depth of field. And I think the blur strength, it's 2%, and check off use gradients. And then you can go back into your camera, and this might be kind of difficult getting it down if you haven't used depth of field before, but you're just going to check off the rear blur and the front blur. And I think I made the target distance around 1200. And now you can render it on probably a frame that has a lot of letters. And after it does all the global illumination and ambient occlusion and stuff like that, then it will kind of add on the depth of field after it. Oops, wrong quarter. So I'm just going to render that right now and show you guys what the depth of field looks like. And you won't be able to see it yet, but when it's done rendering, as I said, it will just kind of add on the effect. So it's looking nice, looking nice. So let's just see. And this might not be the best example because everything's kind of close. So let's move forward again. Let's try rendering it like that. Alright, so it looks like it's, we might want to experiment with the target distance. I think it needs to be a lot less, because pretty much this green box right here is what's going to be out of focus. I'm pretty sure. I'm not great with depth of field, but let's try that. That might be a little bit better. Alright, guys, still not looking great, but you guys can just experiment with the target distance. I don't want to take this whole tutorial figuring out the perfect settings for depth of field, but you can maybe make the blur strengths a little bit more, keep it between like 2 to 4%, and experiment with the target distance. I know the blur didn't come out perfect, but let's just roll with it, guys. And the next part of this tutorial I'm going to be doing in Adobe After Effects, and adding that camera shake and the kind of vintage color correction. So let's open up After Effects. So you can like pause the video now while your thing's rendering, and it will probably be a couple hours. But I'm just going to use the one I already rendered before in Adobe After Effects and show you how to do the color correction. So I'm just going to stop this right now.